guys, unbelievably we have come to the end of yet another month, which is just crazy. I cannot believe that 2016 is almost halfway over already. But with that, it means I'm going to be doing another wrap-up video. I was feeling pretty disheartened when I came into this month because in April, I think if I've got my months right, I don't know, they're all kind of blurring together. But anyway, the month before this one, I had only read 2 books, so I was feeling quite upset. I didn't feel like I was reading fast enough, and I definitely wasn't reading fast enough for my Goodreads reading challenge, which I've actually up to 52 books this year. I want to read basically a book a week, give or take. So yeah, because of Pride and Prejudice mainly, and uni work and sort of everything else in between, I didn't get to read as much in April as I would like to. But in May, I managed to read 10 books, which is just crazy and incredible, and I'm really, really happy with all the books that I got to read, which is always a good thing. Typically though, I read books that are at like the bottom of piles on my bookcase. Also, sorry about my voice, my entire family is sick and they gave it to me today, but I don't have a choice, I have to film this today and get it up as quickly as possible because, you know, today was the first day of June, which is crazy. So the first book I read in May was 4 by Veronica Roth. It's a young adult novel, and I actually hadn't read this one before, despite having read the Divergent trilogy and seeing most of the movies. I still haven't seen Allegiant. I hadn't yet read this one, and now that I have read it, I'm sort of like, why didn't I read it before? It was super, super easy to read, and I loved getting to see more of 4's backstory. And of the 4 exclusive novels that you get in this one, my favourite one was The Traitor. So I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Maybe for Christmas I'll ask for a better bookcase. The second book that I read this month was another one for uni, and that was The Tempest by William Shakespeare. So I'm a huge fan of William Shakespeare and I love most of his work, however I wasn't super impressed with this play in particular. I didn't really like the sort of overarching magic plotline that they had sort of going through it, and I found the romance in it between Ferdinand and Miranda to be even more unrealistic than the one between Romeo and Juliet. As my drama tutor sort of says, like, at least they knew what they were doing, but in this, Miranda had absolutely no clue what it was she was getting into. So I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. The third book I read this month was The Isle of the Lost by Melissa Dela Cruz. So this one is a middle grade novel, which meant it was really, really easy to read. It's only like 300 or so pages, and so it got distracted. I thought I saw Mal's name, but it wasn't, it was Mal. So this one is a middle grade novel. It's not particularly long. It's only about 300 pages, so it didn't take me very long to get through. I absolutely adored the Descendants movie. It's like one of my favorite Disney Channel movies of all time. So I was super, super, super excited to get to read this one and sort of, you know, find out more about what makes our characters rotten and why the events that led up to Ben's proclamation actually occurred, which was really interesting to see. And the book sort of ends sort of where the movie begins. So yeah, it was really interesting to get to see how that all came to be. So I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. The fourth and longest book I read this month was A Quart of Mr Puri by Sarah J Maas. So I did a full review to this book, and I'll leave a link in the description down below if you want to check this one out. So this one is a young adult novel, however after reading it I would say it's probably more of a new adult novel because there are quite a few steamy sort of scenes in it. But honestly, I absolutely loved this novel. I thought it was an incredible read. I couldn't put it down. I was constantly needing to know what was going to happen next. Had compelling characters, a compelling story, and I loved it. I loved it, loved it, loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. The fifth book I read this month was The Haters by Jessie Andrews. So this one's a contemporary read, and I was honestly so disappointed with this book. So I heard about Jessie Andrews through Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, which I read last month and I absolutely adored. So when I found this one in a bookstore in Melbourne, I sort of went, I have to read this. But when I did, I was so disappointed with what I read. It was basically the entire book was just about dick jokes. I couldn't connect with the characters. The plot was so misjointed and really unbelievable, and I just found it very difficult to connect to. So I would only recommend this one for people who enjoy crude humor. For that reason, I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was An Ideal Husband by Oscar Wilde. Again, one that I had to read for uni, and I was pleasantly surprised to find that I actually really enjoyed it. Wilde is very witty, and he definitely had a lot to say about the social class of his time, and the play was full of a lot of social critiques. I recommend this one to anyone who loves romance and politics. There's an awful lot of politics going on in this play. So I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I am in 2 minds about this book. Half of me really enjoyed it, and I know that a lot of other people enjoyed it as well, and I sort of went into it expecting it to be great because there was all this hype around it. But when I read it, I found a lot of faults with it. I actually predicted the twist ending that everyone was like, I didn't see it coming, and I sort of went, that's sort of the only logical ending I can see to this book, so I was very surprised to find that more people didn't pick that. I'm going to continue on with this series, but it's not one that's sort of high up on my I have to finish this right now list. So I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. I then read Me Before You by Jojo Moyes, which I really wanted to finish reading before I saw the film. I loved this novel, I really did. I loved the characters, I loved the plot, I loved everything. I read it actually in a day. It's one of the longer books that I read this month. I think it clocks in at about 500 or so pages, maybe just under, and I loved every single second of it. I cried a lot at the end of the book. I sort of was expecting what was going to happen, but I was really hoping that it wouldn't, but of course it did, and it just made me so sad. And now I cannot wait to go and see the film in about 3 weeks time now with my mum to see how it adapts from the book to the screen. 5 out of 5 stars. I just realised I left the 9th book in the lounge room, so I'll be back. So the 9th book I read this month was yet another one for uni. In fact, it's the last book I have to read for uni. Oh, score! And that is Othello by William Shakespeare. I really enjoyed this play. Like, really enjoyed it. Iago is such a compelling villain to get to watch. You know, you just don't know what the guy wants. Does he want revenge? Does he just want to be evil for the sake of being evil? I don't know. That's why this play is so good. I really loved it. This one from me gets a 5 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read this month was The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. So I actually read this one last year, so this one was technically counted as a reread, so because of that I'm not counting it towards my 52 books read. However, I am still counting it as I read the book this month because it sounds so much better to say I read 10 books this month than it does to say I only read 9 books this month. Just like the first time round, I loved this book. I loved the characters, I loved the plot, I love the concept of Cassie's always talking about, you know, what makes us human. I think she talks in very early on, she sort of talks about how do you rid the earth of humans? Rid the humans of their humanity. And this book definitely sort of explores that, especially with Evan, who is very beautiful in my opinion. Although I can't decide between Evan and Ben, and the movie does not help at all because they're both like ridiculously good looking. I actually read this one because I'm planning on reading the second 2 books very soon, so I really needed to remind myself of what had happened. I didn't just want to watch the movie because number 1, I didn't own the movie, and number 2, I'd heard that the movie was a little bit different to the book, so I wanted to read the book instead of just watch the movie. 5 out of 5 stars. Because I was so on top of things last month and managed to read 10 books, oh my god, amazing. I thought I would be super ambitious in my TBR for June, especially since this June and this July I'm going to be participating in the Harry Potter readathon, which starts on June 6th and ends on July 31st when Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is released. But before I get started on the Harry Potter readathon, I have 3 books that I really want to get read beforehand. So that's 3 books in 6 days, which I think I can do. The first book I want to read is The Infinite Sea by Rick Yancey. So like I said, I just finished reading The Fifth Wave and now I have really want to read this one. Oh my gosh, look at this. It's what I was saying before. How do you rid the earth of 7 billion humans? Rid the humans of their humanity. I'm really excited to read this book because I absolutely love The Fifth Wave and I cannot wait to see how Cassie's story continues. The next book I am planning on reading this month is The Last Star by Rick Yancey. So I really enjoyed the first book in this series and I cannot wait to see how it all ends with this one. This month I would also like to read Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. I've heard a lot of good things about Rainbow Rowell. So many people on BookTube are absolutely raving about her books, particularly Fangirl and Carry On. So I've never read any of her books and this is one that I happened to pick up, so I sort of went, yeah, I'll try and read it this month. Why not? Obviously, because I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, all of my Harry Potter books will be rereads. However, I am going to include them in my Goodreads challenge because I haven't read them for I think about 5 years now, which is terrible. I should get better at rereading my Harry Potter books. So in the month of June, you need to read 4 Harry Potter books in order to keep up with the Harry Potter readathon. So this month, I will be reading Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Honestly, my Harry Potter books are actually looking a little worse for wear. They'll have like yellow pages and I mean Goblet of Fire in particular just looks really well loved and very well read. However, to make things a little bit interesting, I will not be reading this version of Philosopher's Stone. I will instead be reading the illustrated edition of Philosopher's Stone, which is gorgeous. It's just, look at it, it's beautiful. So I picked this one up at Supernova last year and I haven't had a chance to read it yet, which makes me super sad because honestly, like the images in here are just absolutely beautiful. I cannot wait to get to read it. I think I'm starting it June 6th, I think I said, and I'm so excited to get to read it. I mean, look at that. Like, that is just beautiful. That is Harry Potter in a nutshell. My God, Dudley is an ugly baby. So I figure since I haven't read this version before, why not read it for the Harry Potter readathon? There you have it. all the books that are, well, all of the physical copies of books that I read in May. I am so excited to be starting the books that I am in June. I cannot wait to finish the Fifth Wave series. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all ends. And I cannot wait to start my Harry Potter reread. I love that series and I haven't reread it in such a long time, and I'm so excited to get to read the illustrated edition. Let me know in the comment section below what books you read in May and which books you're planning on reading in June. If you like this video, be sure to give it a huge thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing. Stay random! Bye!